Hey, paisans, the time has come. On the air since 2009, the independently produced, non-FCC compliant champ of video game talk podcasting. Here comes Tiger Claw Radio. Here's your host, Critical Failure.
Welcome everybody to Tiger Claw Radio. Here's your host, Critical Failure. This is episode 318. MagFest a couple weeks ago now, but I still feel it in my bones, man. I still feel it. All right, boys and girls, we got the Chip Love compilation, which was not from one of the normal organizations that I get these compilations from, but Chip Love Volume 1. There's going to be some cool stuff on there, as well as some Commodore 64 talk, a little Resident Evil 2, a little this, a little that. All of that and more coming up. But first, before Chip Love Volume 1, we're going to play a workout song. This is from the AKs, a classic Washington, D.C. hardcore outfit. This is called The Punishment on Tiger Claw Radio.
If you are not punished, you will be punished. If you are not punished, you will be punished. If you are not punished, you will be punished. So if you're not punished, you will be punished. 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 If you're not punished, you will be punished.
So about a month ago, I was at the gym, and I was on the treadmill, and I was a few miles in. Now, I like to run in order to keep in shape, but I'm not a super athletic guy. So I was a couple miles in, and I was really starting to wane, and then my phone's random function pulled that song out on me, and it was like, all right, we're doing this again. What a great workout song. The AKs. I saw those guys live in Tacoma Park, Maryland, just outside of Washington, D.C. in 2002, maybe even like 2001. 2002, I think. Long time ago. A long time ago. And it was quite a show, man. That's the AKs off of their EP, The Shores of Hell. They've got 2 recordings out that you can get, The Shores of Hell, and the other one, ironically, Knee Deep in the Dead. But we never saw a third album from them. Awesome band. All right. And with that, let's see. Give me a second. I actually have notes. I've written notes, I think, for the first time in TCR in quite a long time. So here's what we got. We're going to do... We're going to do the Vancast, and then we're going to come back and check out the Chip Love Volume 1. But let's start with the Vancast, everybody. You know how we like to do it. I've only got one, so it's time to fire up the Wayback Machine for last Tuesday, and we'll see what we can do. You're listening to Tiger Claw Radio. Stick with us.
Morning, everybody. It's Tuesday. It's time for the Vancast. Rainy morning outside. It's a nice 43 degrees. Very mild. I like it. Good day. Good time to drive to work. 6:21 in the morning. I'm getting ready to pull out here and make the drive over to the office to do my Tuesday. Monday was a bit too much for me, guys. Couldn't swing a Vancast on Monday. That was one of those nights where the baby kept us up late. and then got me up early at 4:30 in the morning. So couldn't quite hack it. But here we are, and a good day to do a Vancast it is, because yesterday I had some good video game time. Actually, finally got out the Atari and started going through my games. I have, got some Atari games this year at MagFest, and then last year I got Atari games as well at MagFest, and my stack of Atari games from last year was still sitting up on the shelf, largely untouched. So I had quite a pile to go through, which is pretty cool. Found some games that didn't work, which sucked, particularly Popeye. I bought Popeye for $7 at MagFest this year, and as it turns out, it is not an Atari 2600 game. I don't know what system this thing's for. I have to assume it's Atari 5200 or one of the other Atari systems, but when I flip it upside down and I look at the circuit board that's inside of the cartridge, it is not the same size. So, pretty pissed about that. That kind of sucks a lot. Yeah. And then there were some doubles. Turns out I had Air-Sea Battle already, which is no big deal. I have to open up my Atari drawer and scrape together all the doubles and put together like a 5-game lot to just dump on eBay, just to make some room. And then get them in the hands of people who actually want the Atari games, because I think a double lot from me would have some good stuff in it. I can't even think of the name of the game, but I have a first-person space flight game that I like from Activision. There's a lot of those games on the Atari, but this one is like, I want to say Starflight, but that might not be right. One that my last go-round with the Atari I was very much into. It's like first-person space flight, but then every once in a while you see these portals and you try and fly into the portal, and if you make it into the portal, then like the background color changes or something. And that's how you know you've jumped to the next star sector. It's a pretty neat idea. I know I've got a double of Raiders of the Lost Ark. So it would be this flight game, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Air-Sea Battle, and believe it or not, skateboarding. I managed to get a hold of a double of that, which is pretty crazy, because it's not a rare game by any stretch of the imagination, but if you're going to order one off of eBay, you're looking at like $10. And I got a double of it, so yeah, that would look good in a group of games. I think that might be it. I know there's others, but I'd have to pop open the drawer and start comparing titles and that sort of thing. I think that I got doubles of Missile Command, a couple of those games that everybody has. Missile Command, Pac-Man, Asteroids, Space Invaders. Those are the base games for the Atari 2600. Any good lot worth its salt is going to have one of those games. Combat, that sort of thing. A couple of those. Because room is the name of the game, man. I have one big dresser drawer filled with Atari stuff, and it's running out of space. Running out real fast. So that was cool. Last night I set that up, and I moved which TV the Atari was. It was hooked up to the tube TV. I have a little, I think it's 17-inch, real small CRT that's in my room that I've had for years. We've had this TV so long that we actually got it new in box as a CRT at a Best Buy, back when Best Buy would sell CRTs. So I had it hooked up to that thing, which is like the prime machine to play Atari on. But I kind of moved things around to make it more accessible, so I experienced playing an Atari on like a flat screen TV for the first time. And it did work, but it wasn't great. It wasn't great. People say CRT is the best for a reason. So that was last night. It's pretty cool. I played that, and then I was listening to Ride the Lightning, which is a record that doesn't get played very much in my house. It's not a bad album by any stretch of the imagination. It just doesn't see a whole lot of shine. Alright, where are we at now? My C64 Mini shows up today, so hopefully I'll have that to play with tonight. That'd be pretty cool. Super interested in the Commodore 64 still. One thing that's disappointing about that is like they have the Mini set up so that you can load games onto it, but you can't like add games to the library. Basically, what happens is you have to flash an image onto like a USB thumb drive. You get your ROM, and you have to name the ROM something very specific, so that you can only put one ROM on the thumb drive. Then you put the thumb drive in, and it will emulate that as if it's a diskette put into the drive. Right? So one game that I want to play on this thing is the port of Super Hexagon, which I think is called Micro Hexagon or Tiny Hexagon or something. So I'm going to have to put that on the USB drive, and then when I want to switch games, like move over to Portal, which is a game I enjoy very much on the C64, I'll have to then remove that and lose the previous game that I was playing. Big mess, not great. However, based on what I've seen on YouTube, the thing's been out for a few years now, so it's been cracked several times over. So supposedly I can replace the firmware with something else, and then turn it into, a big C64 station, which will be fun. It'll be fun because the C64 Maxi, the full-size one, is definitely like $200 now. Do you know how much an authentic C64 is? It's about $200. What are you gonna do? I haven't bought an NES game in quite a while. I've been considering buying an NES game. Not because I want to kick the doors open and start collecting for the NES again. I just feel like it would be nice to get like one game a year. What would my game this year be? There's a few that I don't have, but not many. My collection's more or less complete. Not that I have a complete NES library, but just collecting the games that meant something to me as a kid. Like there's a few that are missing, but nothing that got me to chase it. Like I don't have all the pinball games. On YouTube, one of the things I did starting out was I made a video looking at all the pinball games on the NES, all the ones I knew about. And there's a lot of those that I don't have. Like I don't have Pinbot, which might be nice to get. And Pinbot is not an expensive game either. So Pinbot is one I wouldn't mind getting. I wouldn't mind getting Gyrus. And Gyrus is actually the game that got me on this, because I've been playing it on the C64, and it just reminds me how awesome the Nintendo game is. World Cup Soccer would be fun to play again. I don't think I have World Cup Soccer. Yeah. Maybe I just need to hook my NES up and play it. Maybe there's no need to chase down new games. I haven't been playing my NES really since I used to do those real quick NES videos, which has been like maybe a couple years now. Year and a half, something like that. That's when I was playing NES. And I think what got me off the NES was when I got a hold of some reproduction cartridges, and they didn't work right. They didn't work the way I wanted them to. So that was a big disappointment. And with that, boys and girls, I think I'm out. I think I'm going to send you guys back to the studio. I don't have anything else left. I'm thinking back about old NES games that might be fun to pull out. And for some reason, the one game that's coming to mind is Gauntlet. I don't think Gauntlet would be the game that would rekindle the NES for me, but I think if I were to sit down and play NES this morning, Gauntlet would be the game I would play. I remember my brother and I talking about setting off on an adventure to just play Gauntlet and play and not stop until we beat it, and write down our passwords and do everything we could. And we never actually did that, but it was like an idea we were kicking around back and forth. So since then, this is probably, oh my gosh. I was probably like 18, 17 having this conversation. Since then, it's kind of always been something I wanted to do, but at the same time, not really. Just because no time / always something else to play. But Gauntlet is a good game. I don't need to get a new copy. It's one I have already, but I wouldn't mind playing it again. All right. I'll see you guys back in the studio.
Well, boys and girls, we are back in the studio. Feels good. It's Friday night. It's 8:12. Been a long week of work. Time to talk about some video games. But first, just want to take a second to thank the sponsors. This is a Patreon-sponsored program. That's right, boys and girls. No ads, no sponsors, no corporate sponsors. This is the reason I can keep saying whatever I want to say. It's because of these guys here. They gave their resources to make sure we can come back every single week and do what we want to do. So as a thanks, I put the show up early. They get it as soon as it goes up, sometimes Friday, sometimes Saturday. I also read their names off in a hall of distinguished gentlemen. They are Hemrock, Sendu, Tecmo Balls, Darabka, and Konstantin Kelman. Thank you guys so much for your contributions, and I hope you guys are having a good time. All right, let's see what we're doing with that. Okay, so my son tried Super Mario Brothers 2 for the first time recently. So we played, we watch a lot of Grand Pooh Bear on YouTube. He's a guy who plays Mario Maker 2 quite a lot. So Mario Maker 2 doesn't have any representation for the second Super Mario Brothers game that we're all familiar with back on the NES. So he was kind of seeing this game for the first time. He knew what the first game looked like, he knew what the third game looked like, but the one odd duck, Super Mario Brothers USA, he had never seen it. All right, kiddo. So you played Super Mario Brothers 2. How'd it go?
So, for one thing, as all games go, it did take me a bit to learn the controls.
So you got through, I think you made it through to Birdo, and then Birdo took... He didn't take a couple of tries. You took him down the first time out, right? It took you a while to get on a couple of eggs. But right, the eggs, you're supposed to jump on the eggs, then he spits, you get a hold of him and you throw him back at him. But you did eventually get him, right?
If I remember right, one of the times I tried to do it, since I haven't totally mastered the pickup button, I got on the egg, and if I stayed on the egg, I would have died because I didn't jump off. I was still trying to find the pickup button, but I did jump off without dying.
All right, so you got Birdo. Then comes the second stage, and this is where I think it's interesting because it's those of us who've like grown up and playing these games for years and years and years, and it's just second nature. I forget that some of the tricks that you have to know to beat those levels can be really what's the word? Like there's no real way to figure it out unless somebody tells you. Because the second stage, if you remember, there's the first thing that happens is there's a little platform, and then you got the little guy on the carpet who starts flying around, and then you have to get on the guy and pick up the head and then throw him so you can take control of the carpet. Woo, man, the flying leap you took into the nothingness before you knew that trick was pretty entertaining. So here's a question.
Yeah, I tried.
Would you play Super Mario Brothers 2 again?
Probably not, to be honest. Is that coming through this?
Yeah, you can see the Neils jumping?
Okay.
It can hear you. This is a powerful mic. It can pick you up.
That's good. Okay, back to what we were talking about.
Probably not. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're still digging the tower defense, playing the Bloons TD5.
Yeah. The game I've been playing right now is called Bloons TD5. So it's, one of those tower defense games.
Good times. Yeah, that was the Steam sale. Picked that up for 99 cents.
90% off. Wow.
Yeah, the Steam sales used to be a lot more 90. We used to see a lot more 80, 90% off, and now it's a lot more like 10, 20% off, that kind of thing. They're not quite as heavily discounted as they used to, but there's still cool stuff. All right, and with that, we're gonna check out what do we got here? Chip Love Volume 1. So the Chip Love compilation has a lot of familiar names on it. Antler, Gwem, Havoc. I've seen some of these people around. Let's take a listen. This is a free download. It's got 18 tracks on it. You can go get yourself a copy from the Chip Love Bandcamp page. Let's give it a listen. You're listening to Tiger Claw Radio. Okay, so here's the deal. I just went through this whole album with my son, and we can't agree on the track to play, so we're gonna do two. First one is Demo Scene Time Machine. This is Junior's pick. All right, stick with us. You guys are gonna decide which song is better. Is he right or am I? Okay, this is the battle. This is the DJ battle. All right, so you're up first. I'll give you first hits out of courtesy. Demo Scene Time Machine presents Haba to Baba. I think that's how you pronounce that. Anyway, here you go. All right. Demo Scene Time Machine. Heck of a good track. A little on the long side at 4 minutes and 23 seconds. But that was his pick. What are you going to do? I went with something much shorter. This is LFOB with the Moonlight Ribbon Castle. A lot bubblier, a lot shorter. I dig it. So, what do you like better? The last one or this one? Stick with us. You're listening to Tiger Claw Radio. How is that not the better song? That is the better song. That
Because it just isn't.
It's the
That's
better
how.
song. It's the better
It
song.
is not.
It doesn't outlast its welcome. It's only a minute and a half.
I'm perfectly fine with longer songs.
It makes its point. It
Mine
lifts
makes
the
its
mood.
point too.
It makes its point that your song is not as good. That's the point that it makes.
It does not.
Yes.
The only point that it makes is maybe the fact that I don't really like it.
All right.
That's my point.
All right. Sounds like you guys are going to have to settle this one. But I'll tell you what, though. 18 tracks. I think that whole album is really good. And if I'm not mistaken, let's see. I'm heading back to the Chip Love Bandcamp page. I think this whole thing is pretty new because their top 3 releases are all 2019 releases. That came out this past December, so this is a fairly recent release. Okay, they've been around a while. 2018.
Pro tip: my song is better.
How can you say that? What? Okay, listen, y'all. When I played that, he's trash. That's what he said. Trash.
Yes, we have different.
I can't believe it.
I mean, very different tastes in music. Very different tastes in music. And we both seem to hate the other person's song.
No, I don't hate the other person's song. I don't hate what did you go with? Demo Scene Time Machine? That's a good track. I was saying that sounded like a Tron song to me. So he used to watch a lot of Tron Legacy when he was little. That was like his favorite movie. I think it's a normal thing when you're a little kid. Most kids pick a movie that's their favorite, and then that's the movie that gets played over and over and over and over again. When I was little, my favorite movie was Back to the Future. I used to play it constantly. We had like a tape copy. And your cousins used to play Chicken Run when they were little. I don't know if you've ever seen Chicken Run or not. It's like
No, I've not.
claymation chickens. It's a pretty amazing piece of cinema. I think you're missing out. Well, your favorite movie was Tron Legacy. You watched it over and 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 over again. And that kind of sounds like it could be from that movie. To me, anyway.
I think it's a bit more overs than that.
But more what do you mean?
I think I watched it more than about...
Oh, a few more overs? Okay.
Yes, I think I watched it more than 7 to 10 times.
My favorite thing was that when he would watch this movie, he wouldn't start at the movie and watch it all the way to the end. He did that like a few times. And then he just like started the movie from like 30 minutes in. The second, if you've ever seen the movie, it's like the second that the kid goes back and like enters the machine, and you see like the Tron world, skips all the story at the beginning. All that. We don't need to see the poorly computer rendered version of Jeff Bridges. That's not what's going to excite the mind of a 5-year-old, which is how old you were then. It was good times. All right, so we got some other bullet points here on the notes. We talked about your first foray with Super Mario Brothers 2. We talked about Chip Love Volume 1. I did want to follow up a little bit on the C64 Mini that did arrive in the mail, and holy Moses, is it unstable! I hooked it up, and a couple of things. People complain a lot about the joystick. I love the joystick. Okay, it comes with this great big fat reproduction of the C64 joystick, which, by the way, the original joystick, not something I'm super familiar with. Okay, so it's just a joystick to me, but it has, you know, extra buttons, and there's an extra set of buttons mounted in the middle so that you can do it left-handed or right-handed. I like this thing. I really dig it. But the machine keeps resetting. Okay? So I couldn't really go through any of the options because it would freeze. Thankfully, one thing I found to be false was that people were saying that there's no way to update it. That is false. They do firmware updates. But because it's not an internet-ready machine, you got to go download the firmware update, put it on a USB card, and supposedly that fixes it. But yeah, all I wanted to do was stay a while, stay forever, which is, of course, impossible mission, what I'm looking forward to playing the most of all. The one C64 game, which, to my knowledge, actually got ported to the Wii. And no, I'm not talking about the Virtual Console. It got its own release. A single Commodore 64 game. It had a case, a physical disc, and everything, just for Impossible Mission. And if you've never seen it, it's glorious because the cover is just like one of those stock photos you'd get from Google image search of a dude with a pair of like night vision goggles, and that's it. And it just says Impossible Mission in like typeface, like a random font. It's great. I got it for like $2 at GameStop when they were dumping their Wii games. So that's the game I want to play. I want to stay a while, stay forever, as they say in the introduction to the Beastcast. Every time you load that game, stay a while, stay forever, or at least a few minutes. Please don't go away. All right. Also on Steam, we had Wizardry Labyrinth of Lost Souls is finally released. If you never played Wizardry Labyrinth of Lost Souls, that is the PS3 game. It was a PS3, PSN kind of game, one of those downloadable titles. So that thing had a sale page on Steam for the longest time, but it got caught up in like rights limbo. So it wasn't released for a very long time, and we finally have it. So Wizardry Labyrinth of Lost Souls, it's a lot more like the original Wizardry games, first-person view. There is a little bit of that sort of visual novel style that the later Wizardry games got once Japan got a hold of the series. But all in all, a classic Wizardry experience. And on that note, everything is auto-mapped, so you don't have to get any graph paper out and make maps like you did with the old school Wizardry games. So that's cool. That thing retails regular price at $14.99, and it is $13.50 until January 22nd. So it's got that introductory price if you get it when it first came out. And that's one chip I think I might get on board with. I might. And the reason why I say I might is because all of my time lately, when I have a few minutes to play video games, it's been Resident Evil 2. That's it. Resident Evil 2. I played Resident Evil 2 as Leon, and I beat it, okay? I beat the normal run through. Then I started playing through the second run with Claire, and I'm knocking it dead. I'm having a really good time. It's a little harder. I'm dying more. but it's fun. How much did I put into that game today? I had some time to play today, and it was so good. Oh my gosh. I'm enjoying it. One thing I will say, because of the multiple plays through, it's taking more time than the previous Resident Evil game I played, Resident Evil 7. And by the way, Resident Evil 7 was a masterpiece, okay? That game was really good. That's right, I said it. I know it's just Far Cry 3 in a house, but I loved it. It was so good. Problem was, I finished that whole game, top to bottom, done with it, in 14 hours. All right? So that makes it the least played, or the lowest amount of hours of any one of the Resident Evil games that I own. At least the ones that I've finished. So 14 hours, but then I could put more with the DLC and whatnot. But this Resident Evil 2 remake, I've blown past that now. It's at 17 hours, and I still haven't beaten it yet. Still haven't gotten the true ending you get in the second run through. So that's been pretty awesome. I'm gonna stop gushing about that game though, because I'm reaching a point where I can't really tell you anything new about it. It comes up at least a tiny bit every week. But once I beat it again and get the true ending, then it's time for the crazy mods, right? Then it's the time where you get the model, the reskins of the models, so you can replace Claire with a giant hot dog or something like that. I know Resident Evil 5 has a ton of that stuff, a ton, and I never really touched it. So yeah, I'm definitely going to do that now. All right, let's consult the notes again, see what we got. We need C64 Mini, hustling through Game B, or second run of Resident Evil 2 with Claire. That's the notes, okay? So do we have anything else? We only had one step into the Vancast this week. We played several tracks. That's 3 tracks, which is more than you usually hear on TCR these days. So with that, boys and girls, let's head over to the fail bag. You know what it is. It's a small show. It's just me. It's just you here. It's just the boyo. Got anything you want to say? You got anything you want to say, just let me know. Best way to do it is head over to YouTube and leave a comment in the comments section. But if you know me personally, if you know my email address, by all means, let me know. Just be clear about what I can and can't read on the air, okay? Thank you very much. Let's see. I did take the time to open this up. Oh, yeah. What was I playing earlier today? I played Quake. That's right. I played all of the games that give me zero good discussion to talk about. And Quake was one of them. Because every year at MagFest, they have this Quake LAN, and every time I'm sitting at the con, at the computer, actually experiencing it in that moment, I'm always thinking, the second I get home, I'm going to play more Quake. The second I get home. And so I set out to finish my nightmare run. I'm trying to play through that game on the hardest difficulty. So in the olden days, kiddo, they used to release some certain computer games. They'd have like, okay, easy, medium, and hard, okay? But then there were certain games that had like a mode that was designed to be harder than anyone could do, right? So Quake had a nightmare skill level. Easy, medium, hard, nightmare. And in order to play nightmare mode, the entrance to the game was hidden. So you had to know a secret before the game even started. And historically, I could never do it. I couldn't. But I tried late last year, and I got pretty far in it. Then I experienced a glitch today where if you're playing through a level normally and you die, it automatically puts you at the beginning of the level again. But if you start playing that way, after it resets you, you lose all your runes. So that happened to me. The runes, if you don't remember, those are the things you get when you beat an episode. Quake is made up of 4 episodes, and I'm working my way through the last one. So, without realizing it, I lost all 3 of the first 3 runes. So that was a little upsetting, but thankfully, through the magic of many save files, it didn't set me back too far. See, when I play these games, I don't have one save file, and then I save over it, and then I save over it, and then I save over it. That's the sucker's way, okay? If you're playing video games and that's the way you're saving, don't do it. All right, this is what they taught me as soon as I got into IT. You save, and then you save on another slot the very next time. Then you save on another slot, and you keep going until you run out of slots. And if you have to start saving over your save files, you go back to the oldest save and you save over that. You gotta manage your version numbers. So if something happens and your save gets corrupted, you can roll it back, man. And that's what I had to do with Quake. So that is an important lesson that I wish I had learned much, much younger. Because I'll tell you what, I wouldn't have lost my Final Fantasy IX save if I did that all those years ago. You ever lost a save file that you're still bitter about like 10 years later? That's me. That's me. It is. All right. So let's go back to the fail bag. I'm on my way over to YouTube. I did have this open, but I navigated away from it, and good luck trying to find it again. Not any of that. All right, let me click around. You know, I could stop the recording for this part, but that just wouldn't be me. Here we go. Yeah. I did a few like small videos this past week. Just a little of this, a little of that to have fun with it. Let's see what we got. Yeah, here we go. Duke writes, Atari. So nice finally meeting you. Atari collecting can be so fun and addicting because the variants are plentiful and cheap. It's a rabbit hole that's actually fun to go down. Good to hear from you, Duke. So here's the problem that I'm running into with Atari right now. I got a bunch of new games, but I'm starting to at least with the new games I just got for the Atari, I'm starting to scrape the bottom of the barrel. And the bottom of the barrel with Atari is pretty bad, okay? Atari is a system that gets real bad real fast. So in order to save my interest in Atari, I feel like I have to throw the brakes on, go back to the really good games, and just play those. All right? So this happened many years ago. I wish I knew how long ago, but you guys know Maximum RD, a.k.a. Rob, here on YouTube. He's like an old fixture of YouTube. He's been around forever. He leaves comments on retro videos. If you run a video game channel about retro video games, Rob has shown up in your comments somewhere. I guarantee it. So Rob at one point, and I can't remember how we made this happen, but he gave me some of his Atari games. I wanted a copy of Pitfall. I was like, I want Pitfall, and he's like, I got an extra one. So he sent me Pitfall, and along with Pitfall, he included like a couple of sports games, like, I don't know, Atari Baseball and Atari Football. I was like, yeah, thanks, Rob. What a nice thing you did. That's so cool. And he was like, nah, it ain't a nice thing, brother. Yeah, that's like a weird thing to say, but okay, thanks, man. I sat down with Atari Football, and it was the first time I experienced a game that was so bad. The entire system just went in a drawer for years after that. I'm done. I can't play it anymore. All of the fun games weren't fun anymore after Atari Football. So I'm really worried about that happening again, to be perfectly honest. Now Duke's a guy who knows the games to play because he's got a history with the Atari. You follow him on Twitter, he talks about games like Sub Hunt, things like that. The games that are actually worth your time. So that's one of the reasons I like to follow him on Twitter. He's got a lot of that stuff. Very knowledgeable about that sort of thing. Not so much about Atari Baseball or Atari Football, because those can go right in the garbage. All right.
Can I read one?
Yeah, you can. Why don't you read, let's see. Mecha Menace. What's on my shelf? He goes by Mecha Menace. This is a comment on the MagFest 2020 acquisitions. Go ahead and read that.
I had an Amador?
Amador is the name of an Atari
Okay.
game.
I had an Amador. It made me want to crush Roller even more.
Yeah, it's funny, Mecha Menace. I got Amador and I was excited because there is a game in my Atari collection called Spider Droid that I like. I like Spider Droid. It's one of the games I really enjoy. The artwork is really cool. I can't think of the name of the company off the top of my head, but they made some of the world famous Atari turkeys, right?
Turkey?
Yeah, like bad games. If you've ever played Karate on the Atari with those two like derpy, twisty looking dudes, that's the same company. But Spider Droid was really good, and somebody told me on the internet, because if it's on the internet, it must be true. Amador is like that game, only better. Like apparently Spider Droid was like a cheap copy of Amador. So I was excited. I'm going to play Amador, and I'm going to go around the little squares, and they're going to change color, and I'm going to get the best score I can possibly get. I was a little let down, to be perfectly honest. It worked. I mean, I guess technically it was what I was told it was, but I don't know. Spider Droid I like a little better. Maybe it's something as simple as Spider Droid was the game that introduced me to that concept, where you have a grid and you're just trying to trace the squares. I don't know. It is what it is. I talked about needing the C64 Maxi in the United States, and people were quick to point out that it is available in the United States. If you get it from, one guy said if you get it from Germany, Amazon Germany, they will ship to the United States. Problem is, with inflation and buying it in euros, right? Because it's 100 euros, which ends up being 140 US dollars. Then you got to pay another $50 to ship it. You're looking at almost $200 for one of these things. So if you're going to get a reproduction of a Commodore 64 for $200, might as well just get on eBay and get yourself a Commodore 64, because that's about what it is, $200. And as it turns out, you can get a disk drive for the Commodore 64 that uses SD cards. So think of it like the Commodore 64 version of an EverDrive, sort of, I guess. So that's my issue, but you're absolutely right. Commodore 64 fan writes, agreed, 500%. I want one as well. My C128 has a dead PSU. I feel you, brother. I feel you. You don't want to let go of that original hardware, do you? That's funny. Everybody who owns a C64 becomes one of these amateur electronics experts. Pop it open, you got to unsolder. You can't own one of these things without unsoldering chips and soldering in new chips. If you do, then you're that guy who has a dead Commodore 64 that sits in the garage for years and never gets used because it doesn't quite work, but I don't really want to throw it out. That's the guy I don't want to be. So who should show up in the comments of these videos but Larry Bundy Jr.? Larry Bundy Jr. Guru Larry! He says, have you tried Amazon Global? I got one. Only difference between it and the Mini is more USB ports and a slightly better roster of games. Somebody asked him if he's going to do a video about it, and he said he wasn't planning to now. I tried it. That you can find places that will ship it to you, but it's just too expensive. Do you have a Mini, Larry? Because the Mini is really unstable. Apparently there's ways to fix it, but it's the Mini is taking some work to get up on its feet. I'll tell you that much. Trevor Story writes, Amazon Germany delivers to the U.S. Awesome. Gaming Beast 82, who I broke bread with at MagFest, writes, I got the Mini too. It works well. I would love the Maxi for sure. Sean, I just got a Mini, man. I just got one. I got to say I love it. I know the keyboard's fake, and that kind of sucks. But I cleaned up the top of my dresser just by where I sleep. I spent like an hour, and I cleaned it all up, right? Got the little tiny flat screen TV. I got the Mini sitting there all by itself on a clean dresser with like a really crappy record player, a Crossley record player sitting next to it. So I spin records on the Crossley record player. If you're not familiar with Crossley, they make cheap record players that they sell to hipsters. Technically, they do function, but they have no low end. So all the records that get played on it sound like they're going through a high-pass filter. So I listened to my vinyl copy of Ride the Lightning that way. Listened to Ride the Lightning from Metallica, and I played what I could of C64. I dig the Mini, man. I'm so glad to get one, because it's $30. That means it's going away, guys. If you can get yourself a copy of the C64 Mini for $30, that means the C64 Mini is going in the garbage. You're not going to be able to buy it anymore. Like, to the point where I'm thinking about spending another $30 and getting an entirely separate Mini just so that I can get a second joystick. Right? Because if you want to get an individual joystick without the system, guess what? It's $30. So you might as well just get a second system and hold on to it as a spare. Desmond101 writes, those GBA Castlevania games are pretty great. Circle of the Moon is my least favorite, and it still holds up pretty well. The DS games were good also. Macamenus responds, I've heard that people don't like Circle of the Moon. It's the only Metroid-like Castlevania game I've played, and I really enjoyed it. Desmond responds, it's tough, similar to the original NES games. The art style is unique compared to the rest of the series. I think Aria of Sorrow is my favorite of the GBA games. The story goes off in some strange places, but it's an excellent exploratory action platformer. Oop, there's more. Trying to avoid the Metroidvania terminology for CF. Lol. Do you know what Metroidvania is, kiddo?
No.
Okay, so there was there was a game when we were all
Oh,
kids
yeah.
called Metroid. Okay.
Okay.
And Metroid was a side scroller like Super Mario Brothers. But the thing that made Metroid unique is that it was not just go to the right. Okay? You had to you would go up and then you could go left or right and you could go down and it was like a big sprawling map. And you had to go all around to find the item that would open up the next area. So it was what you'd call non-linear. That was Metroid. Castlevania was like a side scroller that was a little bit more linear, but it was like horror based. So you had a whip and you were fighting like classic monsters like Frankenstein and Dracula, that sort of thing. So there was a game where they kind of mashed those two concepts together and people started calling it Metroidvania. And for some reason that term makes my skin crawl. I don't know why. It just does. I hate it when people say it. But it's like an industry standard term. So any sort of non-linear platform, people call it a Metroidvania game. Where did I leave off? Yeah, here we go. Mechamanus writes, really? I think the NES games are unforgiving, especially considering there are no saves, no leveling up, and smaller moveset in the old NES games. I like the cart's Circle of the Moon too. I guess people prefer the flamboyant new Castlevania style. Use whatever term you want. I'm against using that mashup term because why use it when it follows the formula of the Metroid games, which became popular prior to Symphony of the Night? Yes, I completely agree. People use the term roguelike, and I think the term is appealing to so many since it delineates the Castlevania series post Symphony of the Night, and it sounds sexier than Metroid-like. Hold on, I gotta read that again because you're starting to lose me. It delineates the Castlevania series post Symphony of the Night. There we go. And it sounds sexier than Metroid-like. Yeah, Metroid-like sounds really terrible. Maybe I should start using the term Zero Suit Samus-like. Ugh. All right, almost done. Out of the newer games, I like to play Portrait of Ruin, since I hear it is a follow-up to the Sega Genesis Castlevania Bloodlines. Yes, Bloodlines is an amazing game. I don't know why, since it'll probably sound nothing like that game, and it'll definitely look nothing like that game. I didn't realize, guys, until I read this thread, how out of touch I am with Metroid. Not Metroid, Castlevania. I guess Metroid too, but I knew I was out of touch with Metroid. I played Castlevania 1, and Castlevania 2, and Castlevania Adventure, and that's about it for the Castlevania games. I never played 3. I never played Symphony of the Night. I never played Circle of the Thing. I did play a couple of the NES ROM hacks though. I remember making a video about that like 5 years ago. Chorus of Blood Moon. I don't know. There were a couple of really top-notch NES hacks that I would recommend. I wish I could remember what they were called, but I made a video of it if you decide to root through the videos on my channel. Castlevania's awesome. Get the Castlevania collection. Remember last week how we were talking about Mike Matai and how he said if you beat a game with save states, then you didn't beat it? Throw all of that out the window and play Castlevania with save states. Play the first few games. Just save state it up. It's okay. It's not 1991 anymore. You can just play them and don't brag about it. Don't brag about I beat Castlevania. No, it's okay. You use save states. That's all right. That's what you got to do to have fun. But yeah, I might do that. I would like to give those games a serious try again. Castlevania Dracula X was what always did it for me. That was the game that I would go back and revisit year after year after year because I had it in my collection and I knew it was like a valuable game, but I couldn't really get anywhere in it. I see you leaning in. You got anything you want to say before we move on? It's okay.
Oh, not really.
All right, cool. Gaming Beast says, he's mentioning something I was talking about last week. You were thinking of the game Eradicator. It was a great time, man. I hope to do it again in the future. And remember, you are black. Again, okay. To be clear, he's talking about a video. Okay, yeah. Eradicator is an awesome game. End of an era game. It was cool to see the box in person. Oh my gosh. It's one of these things where it's like, what an awesome game. What a game changer. some of these games that were so awesome, and they're just like, hey, you get XCOM for like $1.50 when it's on sale. Yeah, it's only XCOM 1, It's only one of the huge historical achievements in tactical video games ever. Yeah, but the interface isn't great and it's old. Yeah, it's $1.50. That's where I put Eradicator. Right up there. Right up there. For legal reasons, I have to clarify that I don't think Eradicator is better than XCOM. All right, let's move on. Yeah, I have Gaming Beast says, I really wish to have seen the whole Power Fist concert instead of Proto Man. He liked Power Fist better than Proto Man. You ever see Power Fist? We were in the same boat. None of us had heard of them, but they were playing before the Proto Men. So we showed up, the three of us, me, Hemrock, and Gaming Beast, and we saw them play their last song, and we were all like, "Oh crap, these guys are amazing." So give me a second. What we're gonna do is go offline, and I can show you what they sound like. All right. So Power Glove is the name of the act. I just looked it up. My boy and I sat down, took a little sample. Good stuff, man. Yeah, and then he writes, kick vote Darabka. Okay, so we were playing, to give this some context, this is when we were at the LAN party. I kept writing vote kick, like exclamation mark vote kick Darabka. Look, I know it's a Half-Life command. I just thought it would be funny, and it wasn't lost on him, thankfully. Death Adder writes, before you mentioned Silent Hill 2, when you were talking about Mr. X and the T-Rex showing up, I was just thinking about Silent Hill 2 and Pyramid Head. There's an area in Silent Hill 2 where you're just walking around some halls or whatever, and the camera cuts and Pyramid Head is instantly behind you for no reason. The subtlety of slipping in that monster while I was fairly relaxed gave me quite the chill. Also, Gaming Beast eating cereal needs to be a weekly segment on now. I will cover all costs. Yes. You buy the plane ticket, I'll buy the cereal, and somehow we'll get him to find work here in the United States. Oh, man. That would be great. It's weird that like all the amazing stuff we saw at the con and like just that or some of those chilling at the place moments are like some of my favorite moments. I don't know. Can't quite explain it. Death Adder, my man. Good to hear from you, brother. Macamenus writes in, no need to worry. I did not hear any off-gassing in this episode. Quick break from the comment. How did you not... Okay, to give some context, so Macamenus spotted a fart in the Vancast like 3 weeks ago now. That was like the smallest little... And that was it. And it was gone. I was just talking to... There's no way anyone will ever hear that. I'm just going to keep talking like nothing happened. And he spotted it. Go back and listen to the Vancasts from last week. Because there was a honk like 4 times as loud. And I was thinking, you know what? I'll leave it up to Mechamenus to find it. We're going to do like a Where's Waldo of farts. And it's just going to happen. And you're going to have to find the time signature. Maybe you get a prize if you can pick it out. But all right. You got something?
Yeah, here it is. Dad, to be honest, I don't know. I honestly really don't know why you're mentioning this because, yeah, I don't see this in the comments.
You don't? It says it. Look, it says it right here.
Oh.
No need to worry. I did not hear any off-gassing. It's a real thing. So you see, look at this. You see how this is a link? You see how this is a link that you can click on? People do this when it's like at this particular time this happened. Okay. He left a link like this where you could click on it, and it immediately brought you to the fart sound.
Okay.
This happened. It was a real thing.
That makes sense. Yeah,
all right.
Yeah, I started to stop paying attention.
Okay.
Sorry.
You and everybody else. He also writes, designed by committee. I'm not an expert on at music composition, but I think the first Fama track would sound better with the isolated noise beats. Then he leaves the time signature. Placed at the beginning, then starting with the harpsichord melody. You know what? Constructive criticism. Thank goodness. I will give it a try. I'll give it a try. Get a little drum fill to get to roll you in. For some reason, okay, so Fama Tracker has a particular track of the 4 tracks that you're given by default. One of them is the the noise track, and it's all made up of white noise. So you can use pulses to make it sound like drums, but it's very weak, I think, on its own. So I often like to use that as a drum beat, but then I supplement it somehow. I'll try it. I'll whip something up for you next week so you can hear what it sounds like. But I think all on its lonesome, the noise track in Famitracker is very, very weak. And it's one of the reasons why I think it's worth moving on to like Milky Tracker or something that has less limitations because of that. But constructive criticism, I absolutely dig it. I'll give it a shot. We'll see how it sounds. Then he says the second Famitrack sounds almost like a Mega Man track. Thank you very much. Very high praise. He writes, also, BITD is back in the day. I don't know if it's a thing people do all over the internet. I just type it in and hope people pick up its meaning by context. You know what? I'm getting older. It's getting harder for me to pick up those types of things. I had to look up what FOMO was. Somebody said that, and I was like, oh, that's not a thing. I can ignore it. And then I heard it like the very next day, which apparently is fear of missing out. Sounds kind of silly to me, but, you know, whatever. How Gabriel Padilla writes on the Word Star 4 video, thanks for the video. There must be some sort of malfunction in your machine since the characters are not pixelized. Just kidding. I used this thing, a later version of it. But anyways, back in 1995, getting back to it now. Thanks. People leave a lot of comments on the Word Star 4 video. That was a good time. I should do more MS-DOS stuff. Larry Bundy Jr., good old Guru Larry, writes, I would recommend buying a Super Nintendo USB pad for the C64 Mini. This is on the C64 Mini thing. Get a SNES USB pad for it. One of those cheap Chinese ones. The C64 joystick that comes with it can be a nightmare to use. Yeah, you know what? I'm told that. I'm liking the C64 joystick for now, but I think I'll get tired of it before too long. Let's see. And that's it. We got a couple of random comments on some old MS-DOS videos, but that's it. That is the fail bag for this week. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the show. We made it. And it's like a normal length, too, 1 hour and 2 minutes. If you spent that much time here, thanks very much. I appreciate it. They say time is the greatest currency. All the minutes you spend doing things you don't like to do are minutes you don't get back. And truer, more sobering words have never been spoken, so I value the time that you spend. Also, special thanks to the Patreon sponsors who are giving of their resources, keeping us alive. By the way, check out Chip Love Volume 1, and also check out the AKs. AKs are a little bit hard to find on the internet, to be honest, but if you look up, if you go on Bandcamp and look up Knee Deep in the Dead or The Shores of Hell, you'll find them. You'll find them. You'll find the AKs. Love that band. And with that, boys and girls, as you go out into your work weeks, into your school weeks, whatever it is that you don't want to do, I would encourage you to dive in head first and break through it. Break through it and come out the other side a stronger man. Like the Kool-Aid Man. Oh, yeah! I'll see you guys next week.
P.S. My song was better.
It is not.
Yes, it was.